Welcome to this explainer. I'm so glad you're here. Let's just jump right in with a pretty wild, maybe even radical thought. Research shows that trauma can actually alter how our genes express themselves. Yeah, meaning you might literally biologically inherit your grandmother's stress. Crazy, right? Have you ever felt just absolutely exhausted by your own emotional baggage? We all have those moments where we feel so weighed down. But what if I told you that the heavy, exhausting, emotional load you've been dragging around for years, maybe your whole life, might not actually even belong to you?
Think about that for a second. What if some of the things you're carrying didn't begin with you? If you're an adult taking a hard look back at your family dynamics, I really want you to consider something huge. Those struggles you constantly battle, that persistent anxiety, the relentless perfectionism, the need to people please, or even that sense of emotional distance you just can't shake, well, those might not be individual flaws. Instead, they could actually be chapters in a much larger generational story, one that started long, long before you were even born.
Section 1. The Invisible Suitcase. Let's dive right into this. To really wrap our heads around this emotional inheritance, let's use a fantastic metaphor from Paula Williams' work on changing your family story. Imagine that on the exact day you were born, someone walked right up and handed you an unexpected piece of luggage. You didn't ask for it, you didn't pack it, and you for sure didn't choose it. Well, this is your invisible suitcase, and it's packed to the brim with beliefs, fears, habits, coping mechanisms, expectations, and deeply ingrained emotional patterns. Now, most of us spend years, sometimes decades, carrying this unseen suitcase around. And because it's invisible, we never think to question what's inside. We just naturally assume that everything in it originally belonged to us. We look at our fears and our knee-jerk reactions, and we just think, well, I guess this is just who I am.
Section 2. Both Gifts and Burdens.
Now, when you finally crack the lid on that family suitcase, you're going to find a really mixed bag. Literally. Every single family on Earth passes down an inheritance that contains both incredibly wonderful things and undeniably painful things, and it's absolutely crucial to hold a both-and perspective here. On one hand, families pass down remarkable generational gifts, stuff like profound resilience, deep faith, fierce determination, spontaneous generosity, vibrant creativity, and a super strong work ethic. These are beautiful gifts that 100% deserve to be honored, but at the exact same time, families can also pass down generational pain. We're talking unresolved grief, deeply rooted fear, shame, cycles of addiction, a culture of silence, abandonment, or trauma. And here's the kicker. Kids learn these things not just from what is spoken out loud in the home, but powerfully from what remains completely unspoken.
Section 3. The Weight of Repeating Patterns. So, what actually prompts someone to finally unpack all this stuff? Well, people usually don't decide to examine their emotional inheritance when life is just a breeze. It almost always starts with a feeling of sheer exhaustion. You know the feeling, that heavy, sinking weight of noticing you're repeating the exact same behaviors or experiencing the exact same struggles you swore you never would. And that kicks off a rapid-fire sequence of internal questions. You might find yourself asking, why do I keep repeating the same painful relationship patterns? It's this deep, internal exhaustion that just builds and builds. And it usually hits right at the moment when the pain of staying exactly the same finally becomes greater than the fear of making a change.
And the questions just keep coming. Why do I react so strongly to certain situations? It is so deeply frustrating to feel completely out of control of your own emotional reactions, right? Just watching yourself respond to daily stressors with an intensity that honestly doesn't fit the moment at all.
And then there's this big one. Why do I carry fears I cannot explain? Why do some struggles seem to run right through the family tree like wildfire? Look, when these questions start swirling in your mind and become absolutely impossible to ignore, I want you to know something super encouraging. This is actually the very first sign that your healing journey has already begun.
We almost always think of courage as this bold, fearless leap. But the truth totally reframes that. Courage often begins simply as exhaustion. It starts as a deep, bone-level weariness with carrying burdens that just don't serve you anymore. It's the quiet refusal to keep repeating the same heartbreaking, disappointing cycles over and over again. That profound exhaustion, that is exactly what prompts us to finally, bravely reach for the zipper of that invisible suitcase.
Section 4. Compassion for the past. As we get ready to open that suitcase together, I want us to deliberately slow down for a second. This next shift is critical. If we're going to do this work, we have to shift our focus completely away from blame and move it entirely toward awareness. Because the reality is most people were doing the best they could with the tools they had available. This entire narrative has to be framed with deep, abiding compassion. The whole purpose of unpacking your generational baggage isn't to point fingers at your parents or your grandparents. Human beings simply teach what they know. No one wakes up intending to pass down suffering to the next generation. They just handed you the tools they were handed, even if those tools were broken.
Now, as you begin to see this and unpack it, you are going to feel a total whirlwind of emotions: grief and anger, sadness and relief, compassion and confusion, and, importantly, hope. I want to validate this for you right now. You might feel literally all of these emotions in the exact same day. And if you do, it means absolutely nothing has gone wrong. Healing isn't just some intellectual exercise. It is deeply emotional. The feelings you're experiencing have probably just been waiting patiently for years to be acknowledged. You aren't losing it, you're just becoming aware.
Section 5. Choosing your news story.
When you choose to actively and bravely examine this generational luggage, you aren't just looking at the past. You're actually creating incredible new possibilities for your future. You're choosing your new story. So, to help you systematically sort through what you've inherited, here are some highly actionable reflections you can take away today. Ask yourself, what struggles seem to repeat in your life? Are there family beliefs you just accepted as fact without ever questioning them? What specific cycle are you most tired of repeating? And perhaps the most beautiful question of all, what would healing make possible for you?
Because here's the bottom line. Understanding creates choice, and choice creates possibility. You didn't ask for the suitcase, but you absolutely have the right to examine it. You have the power to decide right now which parts, which strengths, which resilience, which creativity deserve to stay in your life, and which painful patterns no longer belong in your future. I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to ponder today. Which parts of your inherited suitcase will you carry forward, and what will you finally leave behind? You aren't opening this suitcase because you're fearless. You're opening it because you believe a better future is possible. I really hope this explainer has empowered you to start your own unpacking process. Thank you so much for joining me, and I highly encourage you to take that first brave step toward your new story.